All right, welcome to our Satellite Digital Media Sports Weekend. We're on YouTube, on our main YouTube page, youtube.com/ at SDM News Network. World according to Professor B. We are we're on the air right now. So we hope everybody can come on and join us on this Saturday. If you want to come on and talk a little Giants or 49ers or hotline number 415-949-4221. That is our site as as we are on the air right now, and we are going to continue. So we apologize for any of the inconvenience. We've just been having some technical problems, but we're gonna just going to be on our main line from here on out, so to make things not to make things complicated. And we're also on SDM or SDM network, SDM underscore network on Instagram. That's our new Instagram page. So if you want to check out all of our content, this is our main page. We do Bay Area sports, and we just we this you want to come on and check us out right now. But once again, we apologize for the inconvenience. And if you want to come on, check us out. We're going to talk 49ers, a recap of the Niners' first exhibition game of 2024 as the Niners trying to put behind that heartbreaking loss in the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's been February, so March, April, May, June, July, August, about exactly 6 months ago. This coming week, when the Niners lost to the Chiefs, fading way into the past, the disappointment of not holding into that sixth Super Bowl in franchise history. So we're probably just gonna have a very short, condensed show tonight, and we're gonna also, in addition, we're gonna do some special on give you some of the scoreboards, and you know give you some of the scoreboards, and we already talked with Kyle Shanahan. Ambry, the safety, hurt his shoulder. He's going to be out indefinitely. We'll just take a look of the from last night's or today's game. We Some of the takeaways of the. Okay, let me just pull this down. Just 1 second. We're just having some little tech. Here we go. Here we go. So we will just show you a little bit of a highlight clip. A little bit of a highlight clip. Just bear with me just for a few moments. This is courtesy from 49ers.com. Some of the highlights, or no, we're not putting into some of the things that we got on here. And uh, we are just the recap of the game here on the Satellite Digital Media, as we are live right now on our Satellite Digital Media platform. We're just taking a look of what we got on there right now, and just taking a look. Here we go. So the 49ers opened the preseason with a 17-13 loss to the Titans on Saturday, and majority of the veteran players did not get no playing time, and younger players, rookies, and free agents are able to get some time in. And then second year receiver Ronnie Bell, wideout Trent Taylor the first to run under the new kickoff rule. San Francisco been testing a number of kick return tandems, of course, during training camp duos, so few could test out in the preseason. Taylor returned the ball 18 yards to set the Niners on their own 26-yard line. In the first offensive series, he returned the ball 19 yards in the second attempt. The field position and the kicking game was explosive into a 63-yard return. Tennessee was limited to 18 yards to open the second half. So we'll pick up a highlight from the game, and that was we and this was a play Josh Dobbs, who they acquired from Minnesota. We're going to show you this highlight. One of the highlights.
Up by 10. Josh Dobbs, former Volunteer, in trouble. Evades. Keeps it himself. Josh Dobbs. Volunteer, in trouble. Evades. Keeps it himself. Touchdown, Josh Dobbs.
Watch what happens in the backfield. Right there, Rush has the opportunity to get him, and he misses. And when you miss these types of quarterbacks, when you have the chance to get them in the backfield, they often make you pay on the other end. And Josh Dobbs found the goal line and scores back home in the Volunteer State.
Okay, that was that video feed from 49ers.com. And that was from our friends from the good friends from 49ers.com, and video footage from the Titans television network on Saturday night. So the Niners fall to 0-1 in this preseason, and the Niners, of course, their next game will be 1 week from tomorrow night. From tomorrow, they'll play the New Orleans Saints back at Levi Stadium, and they'll be week 2 of the preseason. The kickoff time will be at 5 p.m. This will be on a national game on Fox. That'll be on KTVU Fox 2 as part of the in 2024. That'll be on Fox, the exclusive network home of Super Bowl 59. And of course, Fox will be kicking off will be celebrating its 30-year anniversary and their 31st season on Fox. So that's going to be big. And they also be the network home of Super Bowl 59, which will be in New Orleans coming in sometime in mid-February of 25. So the Niners will be back in action 5 p.m. 2 weeks from on the 27th. They'll be back home we'll be back in Vegas. First time the Niners will be back in Vegas since their Super Bowl loss to take on the Las Vegas Raiders to complete the 2024 schedule. So we're going to get a chance to see Brock Purdy and some of the veterans play at least a quarter or a half next Sunday. We'll be out there on Satellite Digital Media. Of course, Niners Radio 49. It's our sister network, part of the Satellite Digital Media News. We'll be out there for I'll be getting ready to be taping 49ers preseason special, and we'll be out there doing some taping, get some fans' reaction, and so much more. So, and check us out at youtube.com/ at SDM News Network, and on our new Instagram page, SDM that's at SDM dash underscore dash network. We're going to be very happy. It will be underscore correction. That will be on the SDM network. Satellite Digital Media News time is at 10:11. So we continue on Satellite Digital Media. We're going to take a look at what's also some other news. Take a look around the NFL on Saturday, and there's some more action coming up on coming up. And those of you watching, we've had some problems on our Facebook platform, so we're gonna go stick with the YouTube studio. We're at our satellite digital media studios in San Francisco. As we take a look, Vikings over the Raiders 24-23, Chiefs over the Jaguars 26-13, Buccaneers over the Bengals 17-14, Seahawks over the Chargers 16-3, Saints over the Cardinals 16-14, and then update around the scoreboard in the Olympics men's basketball winners 98-87 as the gold team gold they go winning the gold medal again. Men, the women's will play Paris tomorrow for the women's gold medal championship tomorrow on Sunday. So let's also take a look around baseball on a little bit of baseball action on Saturday. Giants were winners 3-1. They assured the series against Detroit. They're looking for a series sweep tomorrow. And then and then we and then take a look at some other scores around Major League Baseball. On the Giants were winners. The Mets were shut out again 4-0. So the Giants are now within, looking in the standings in the wild card. They're within a game of, take a look at that wild card positioning. The Giants, with that victory, are within a game and a half, and it's a 4-5-6. The Braves are now a half game ahead of the Mets. Giants are 1.5 games behind the Braves. They'll play the Braves for a big 3-game series coming up starting on Monday at Oracle Park. So at this time at 14 minutes past the top of the hour, 10 o'clock, we're 1 minute before the top of before the quarter of the hour. We got a special treat we're going to give you. You know, today marks the 35-year anniversary of Dave Trevecchi's making that comeback. He made making his comeback from cancer. This was on back on August 10th. On this date, 35 years ago, 1989, the Giants were in the heat of a pennant race, a game that the Giants would, as Trevecchi, of course, who came in the Giants in that big 1987 trade from the Padres back in July. Of course, that had involved Kevin Mitchell and Craig Lefferts, and all three have had World Series experience. Both Dave Trevecchi and Craig Lefferts were on the pennant-winning Padres team in 1984, while Kevin Mitchell, the year before, was with the Mets in 1986, and also, uh, Trevecchi pitched well in the postseason against the Cardinals, going 1-1, giving up only one earned run. And it turned out to be bittersweet because a year later he pitched on opening day to beat the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. The same Dodgers were going to win the World Series against the A's in '88, and then unfortunately things took a turn for the worse as Trevecchi ended up suffering some shoulder problems that kept him on the disabled list, and then he came back and tried to, and then his arm didn't get better. The pain continued to be. Had arm troubles that ultimately ended up shutting it down, ended up having surgery, and then his arm never got well, never got back to got healthy. Went while he and then he ended up shutting it down, missed the rest of the '88 campaign. Not only that, then that lump turns into a tumor. That tomb turned into a tumor, end up being a cancer. So not only he ended up missing the rest of the '88 season, with now had that cancer in his pitching shoulder, left it. Well, his career was definitely into a state of a lot of uncertainty whether he'll ever come back. And the doctors in early October, had the shoulder surgery to remove that half of his deltoid muscle. and the chances were returning to baseball was no chance, and um, then they gave him an okay to throw in the football and and then during that winter, and then they would start a long grinding rehab that he would be hope to be back and pitch at mid-season, sometime midsummer during the heat of the pennant race. It was one of those great stories of 1989, and we're going to share this piece for a second. This was from 1989. This was part of a great piece by the great Bob Costas, who at the time who was at for all those years doing baseball on NBC and NFL Live as well. And this is a good piece. That this is something I've wanted to share, and and we are going to just share that piece, that segment right now of Dave Dravecki. This was a piece I think you will enjoy. And this was from a piece from the 1989 champions of the Bay, and we're gonna show you that piece right now, Dave of this Dave Dravecki segment, and hope you enjoy this clip. We're gonna just we'll just give you a second. And here we go. I'm gonna share it right now. Here we go. Hope you enjoy this. We're having some technical problems with that though, so let me just get back to it. Just we're having some. Just bear with me 1 second. One of the great stories of 1989, Deja Becky coming back from the.
Then on August 10th, Dave Dravecki, bolstered by his strong religious convictions and overwhelming fan support, he was fighting back.
I remember from the first day that I found out that I had the tumor and that eventually it had to be removed, that they were calling with their support, their encouragement. And from that day all the way through, this entire organization has been very supportive. And then the excitement for them and from on August 10th, being a part of that day was just very special.
It had only been a year since Dravecki had a cancerous tumor removed from his pitching shoulder. The surgery was deemed successful, but the long-term prognosis for recovery was uncertain at best. Even still, recovery and pitching again was the only thing Dravecki considered.
When he came back this spring training and I saw him and he had that big cleft there where the muscle had been taken out, he says, I'm going to make it back. I said, well, if anybody can do it, you can, David. He says, that's right. He says, I'm making it back. I'm going to pitch in the big leagues this year.
And today's starting pitcher for San Francisco, number 43, Dave Dravecki.
While I was standing on the mound, it's too difficult to express in words what I actually felt inside. It was just something that was so overwhelming, and I was so thankful for that opportunity. And at the same time, So excited about once again having another opportunity to play Major League Baseball.
Dravecki's return felt like a miracle. To fans and players, too, it said something about the human spirit.
It is the most memorable thing that's ever happened to me in my career, to be able to sit in center field, teary-eyed, watching Dave Dravecky come back and pitch when everybody in the country, doctors, people, even family, thought that maybe he wouldn't pitch again.
A normal pitcher pitching that game in a pennant race is tough. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety. But what he went through to do something like that was, I'll never forget that. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my life.
The day was heroic. Dravecki won the game, bolstering the pitching-troubled Giants and giving inspiration and courage to a young cancer patient.
Hey, I want to ask you one question. What did I ask you about?
But then, just 6 days later, in the midst of his pitch to Tim Raines, Dravecki collapsed, his arm broken in the same area where the tumor had been removed.
League record this year by you.
Sorry about that. We have a little technical delay of getting that through. So that was a memorable day for the Giants. Giants end up winning that game. What happened that day on this date 35 years ago, back in August? Uh, we're just having some technical. Okay, we finally got that taken care of. So sorry about that delay. So we continue on our satellite digital media live. If you want to come on talk Giants baseball, little 49ers, 415-949-4221 is the hotline number. And we just had that segment. Now I'm just going to pull up the final stats of Dave Dravecki's numbers. This was in that game against Cincinnati back in August of '89. This was during the heat of a pennant race. And that was one of the great stories of 1989, making that comeback. I have his book, Comeback with Dave Dravecki. I've interviewed him a couple of times. I'm going to try to get him to come on one of our podcasts sometime later in this month to talk about that 1989 comeback and he really was an inspiration. What he had to go through to come back. He was at the high moment, pitched in the '89 playoffs against the San Diego or the St. Louis Cardinals, winning that pivotal game too. They lose game one 5-3. Jeffrey Leonard hit in game one, hit the first of what would be then a National League Championship Series record, 4 home runs in 4 consecutive games. And Dravecki being the stopper after that tough loss in game one. And they came out of there with a split. Dravecki throwing a complete game 2 hit shutout. And in that game, both Will Clark and the Hackman, Jeffrey Leonard, went deep in that game. And of course, Bob Melvin, who started that game behind the plate for San Francisco in that game, they pitched that shutout in that first game of that National League Championship Series, or the second game, to get even at a game apiece going back to Candlestick. And, and then in game 6, he pitched well, even better. And then Candy Maldonado misplayed that fly ball off the bat of Cardinals catcher Tony Pena, probably perhaps at that time one of the more underrated catchers in the National League. Had not a bad career, was a perennial all-star with both the Pirates and had some decent years with the Cardinals, hit that triple, and then with one out, he scores that time, the first and only run of that game. And it was end up being a 1-0 game. That one run held up at, Dravecki and Cardinals veteran ace John Tudor pitched very well matching zeros for zero and well played defense. And, and then the Cardinals won game 6. And then the next night, Dravecki's teammate, Atlee Hammaker, gets lit up, who pitched very well enough in game 3 at Busch Stadium. But the bullpen coughed to that 4-run lead after he left and got no decision. And then, the Cardinals end up beating the Giants 6-0, as the Cardinals would win their 3rd National League pennant and advance to the World Series for the 3rd time in 6 years. So that was a disappointing way. And then you all know what happened in '88, the shoulder injury, the cancerous tumor. Then he came back in '89 against the Reds. And I want to get into that stat in that game, as we're going to pull this up on the share screen. Just giving it some time. And I just so looking at that game from 1989 retro sheet. This was the final looking at the final numbers. It was 4-3 played on August 10th, 1989 at Candlestick Park. It was a Thursday afternoon game at the Stick. Overcast and your typical August weather out at Candlestick. And we are so looking at the final numbers, that I'm learning more about this. So here are the numbers. Dravecki's line in the game. He pitched 8 innings, giving up 4 hits, giving up 3 earned runs, walked 1. He had 5 strike, half dozen strikeouts. Then this was a quick game. This is one of those quick afternoon games. The time of the game, and then Bedrosian picked up his 15th save of the season, and that he was a big dividends when they picked up back in early mid-June. He got acquired in the Philadelphia Phillies, the 1987 National League Cy Young Award winner, came in that trade. It was a 4-player trade. It was people forget, within 24 hours prior to that, the Phillies were involved in that big trade. They got Lenny Dykstra from the New York Mets, which I still say was one of the worst trades in Mets history. Dykstra would, but they get Steve Bedrosian, and the players they got back in return was Terry Mulholland, who would end up beating his whole team the following year, would pitch a no-hitter. He would no-hit the Giants a year, Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. And then Bedrosian was for the Giants winning it with that piece. And then there was a 2-hour 9 game, 34,110. And then looking at and then some other notes. This is courtesy of retrosheet.org, the box scores of this game. And manager Pete Rose, at the time, he was still managing the Reds while he was still being investigated by Major League Baseball as gambling scandal. And these were, like I said, these were the final. Pete Rose was ejected by Tom Hallion, the National League home plate umpire. And people forget, and then people forget there used to be a National League umpire crew and American League umpire crew. So Tom Halling actually was the first base umpire. Take that back. Yeah, he was home plate, and then it was Dutch Renard, Paul Runge, and Bob Engel at third base. And so Rose gets ejected, was thrown out of the game, and was already bad enough. He was already in enough trouble because he was, like they say, the final days of his being on a base, being inside of the dugout, because I think exactly 10 days after, 10 or nearly 2 weeks after this game by Drevek, Pete Rose was ultimately permanently banned for life for baseball by Commissioner A. Bartlett Giamatti, which then 10 after he gave Pete Rose the lifetime banishment for betting on his own team on the Reds baseball, he would suddenly die of a massive heart attack in Massachusetts. And, you know, which leads us to a week after that. Dravecki would pitch a week later against the Montreal Expos in Montreal. And when he delivered a pitch to former National League batting champ, future Hall of Famer Tim Raines, Dravecki would collapse. He breaks his arm as he released the arm. But before we get to that, so in this game, taking a look, uh, Matt Williams went 2 for 4. He hit a 3-run home run or a 2-run home run in the fifth inning. It was a runner on base with 1 out. So he got all the runs he needed. And then Kevin Mitchell was intentionally walked twice in that contest. So this was a very important win. Giants maintained possession of first place in the National League. And so with that victory, the Giants maintained their spot in first place in the National League. Maintaining that they maintain their looking at it now. So on August the 10th, just take a look of the game, the victories of that day. So the Giants, with that victory, remain 3 games up on the Astros in the National League West. As we're going to take a look at that standings, where the Giants on August 10th after that victory. So we take a look at the standings in the National League West. We're just Giants 649 losses. They're now they have a commanding. They're 3 games up on the Astros. The so they're 3 games up on Houston. They are. Yep. So they're 3 games up on Houston. Three up on Houston. They're 8 up on the Padres. The Reds, an injury plagued team with all the injuries they've had, and plus with the Pete Rose issues, were the significant distractions. They're 11 and a half games back, so they were struggling. And then the Dodgers, the defending world champion Dodgers, sits 12 back, and the Braves, of course, Braves going through the motions, rebuilding. They're 19 and a half back, and of course, it would not be that long till the Braves would turn things around a couple years later. So in the aftermath of that game, a week later, Dave Dravecky would break his arm when the team was in Montreal. He breaks his arm. He would he was put on a stretcher as he left the Olympic Stadium. He was done for the season. The Giants would go, I believe, would win that game, and Dravecky was the pitcher of record. So now Dravecky once again after all the grinding and the comeback now suffers another setback. He breaks his arm, done for the season. Then, a little more than a couple months later, the Giants, of course, would go on to win the National League West for the second time in 3 years. And by the way, Dave Dravecky was named the 1989 Willie Mack Award winner. That award is named by the late Willie McCovey, the great Hall of Fame great. That's an inspiration award for a player that leads by example. Dravecky was a recipient of that award for the way he came back. And the Giants would win the National League West second time in 3 years, and then they would win the pennant, beating the Cubs in 5 games, and then Dravecky re-injures his throwing shoulder arm again while celebrating with his teammates in the dugout. He got hit from behind, inadvertently hit behind by accident, breaks his arm again, and then that pretty much um, led to now his status of coming back was a lot of there was a lot of uncertainty now because of what happened, because he broke his arm again. And after the '89 season, after he it was I think he was convinced by his wife Janice, and I've read the comeback book. It's one of the great stories from baseball, how you just persevere and fight back. And so he was able to come back from that injury, and you know he was able to come back, but then he breaks his arm again, and then you try to come back, and ultimately, I think his wife convinced him to just quit, and you knew after re-injuring your shoulder for the second time, coming back from cancer, half of your deltoid muscle is gone. You come back and beat the Reds, and then you break your arm. Then, then you re-injure your shoulder arm while celebrating with his teammates when they clinched Game 5 of the National League pennant. And then it was he, and then it was a lot left with a lot of uncertainty, not only with him trying to make another comeback, but the prospect of the tumor was going to resurface again, and face the prospect of a lot of uncertainty whether he was going to continue with baseball. And ultimately, he decided to retire after the '89 World Series when the series concluded. A few weeks later, retired. And then, unfortunately, he ended up having the surgery in early 1990, just before they removed the other half of that deltoid muscle. And then, eventually he ended up had to just he had eventually he called it a well, eventually his arm had to be amputated. He ended up losing that his throwing arm, and I think that you talk about all the big name athletes who make all that money, and and that's a great book. Comeback by Dave Dravecki is one of the great comeback stories. How he persevered, coming from the Midwest and Youngstown, Ohio, the same home where the Eddie DeBarlo family's from, to make that comeback, and came through the Pittsburgh Pirates chain, and then eventually got traded to the San Diego Padres. That Padre team was building for the future, and some familiar names that came through there end up, of course, Tony Gwynn, who was Mr. Padre, um, and it was just one of those emotional things. He come to the Giants. He was a key to them winning the pennant, winning the division '87, then the pennant in '89, and then he was in that chapter, and it puts things. His story remind me what I've went through. The last couple of years since I left University of San Francisco, leaving a program doing broadcast reporting and doing play-by-play for 24 seasons. And I came on board in 1999, and then after this program was closed, I decided I was going to be doing broadcasting on a full-time voluntarily on a full-time basis, and things didn't. And then I really felt that a little more around this time 5 years ago, I really thought things were going to be on the upward swing, and then unfortunately COVID started to hit. COVID came, it ended the 2020 season, canceled the rest of the year, and it was tough. I cannot imagine what Dravecki had to go through, because he reading his book when he was you know when he was back on the disabled list for the second time, having his shoulder surgery right after before he ended up getting the tumor taken out of. It put things in perspective. Begin to you begin to you feel depressed. There's nothing you could do, and he said in this book that he began to wonder whether his days in baseball were numbered. I felt the same thing back 4 years ago when everything shut down during COVID and the pandemic wiped out everything. Not only what happened, but losing my grandmother during the pandemic, and everything just fell apart. Though, I mean, coming off one of those years, the 49ers losing a heartbreaking Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 weeks prior to that, the tragedy of what happened with Kobe Bryant, died in that plane crash with his daughter. One of his daughters died in that horrible plane crash, and then you fast forward when COVID wiped out everything, and you begin to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And then, I really, at that time, doing the shutdown during COVID, I began to also wonder whether my days at USF was numbered. Nothing, nothing, not to know whether my days at USF could be numbered, and not knowing another storm was brewing a couple years later, when what the issues and stuff happened at USF uh, back in the fall of 21, and then you know when the former assistant Troy Nakamura did what he did inappropriately when he dropped his pants, and ultimately was reported, and he ended up costing him his job. And then what happened with Coach Giarratano, unfortunately getting accused for wrongfully stuff, and his family had to suffer. I mean, like I said, I didn't know what happened at the beginning, and I don't want to go too in depth to it though. But uh, but in perspective, it was a when the I knew what happened in early mid January when he got fired for. Then we had to wait till get more facts and stuff. You always want to get the facts before But then when he came back on the field when he should have been on that field, and plus they accused him for bringing him, which he came on there unannounced and did what he did, and then accused coach for the administration, the way how they mishandled it. Where before coach got fired, when that thing happened with the former assistant Troy Nakamura, looked like things were going to get normal. It was going to be one of those years, and we had a USF San Francisco Dons had a real good team. I was, and when that reared its ugly head again, something, and coach was in trouble. Then you go back, you have to prepare what could happen. You begin to prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. And once again, I begin to really rethink thoughts of maybe that your days at USF doing USF baseball could be numbered. And then I got that dreadful call that exactly, March, it's April, May, June, July, August, exactly nearly 5 months ago, uh, when Coach Neil Giorgio was let go. Then that's where things just, you know, and then going back over, then resurfacing with St. Mary's for the 1 year with former Don's assistant and pitching coach, his protege Greg Moore. Looked like we're going to go through another breeze of a season. Looked like and things were good, and then unfortunately they parted ways with him. Some other issues happened, which he did not do, and I really started to think, what it reminds me of what Javecki went through, something what I've went through. Preparing for the worst and hope for the best. Thinking about the same thing when a good friend of mine's when her dad passed away, but going on nearly almost 5 years ago, back in November of 2019, when I met her met her for the first time local, and met her in public. I mean, met her for the first time during the pandemic, and I'm going to kind of keep it anonymous. And when I told her that I was leaving USF, and she just told me, be one door closes, another one opens, and and I've learned some painful lessons, though. I know for Jay Dravecki, after his career, he became a motivator, speaking all around the country, and we're gonna hopefully time real soon, hopefully this month, sometime, try to get him on my podcast. We talk about 1989 and his career with the Giants, and we really want to hear that story. And you know, it was just one of those things that it doesn't last forever. Being at one institution like that, and I know it sucks, or it was sorry, just we were not able to get to cover the Dons in postseason play on a national basis, exclusive with that team, and but in perspective, putting things in perspective, and but I finally am free and from that depression and getting over those hurdles for what happened over the past couple of years, and I think things are going to be better. Hopefully, I could get back into doing college baseball when the right situation comes, and I'm going to build this thing right and not going to be discouraged. We're not going to be down. We're going to do this thing and do this thing right. Because this year, 24, is considered a kind of you could say it's considered with the circumstances. Has to be considered somehow, this has to be considered a restructure, transition and restructuring my platform, and just come up with new ideas and all that. But and I had a good I had a good run with USF, and I only had that one good had that 1 year with St. Mary's, and wish we could have been there for years to come with Greg, but just didn't happen. So We're going to wrap it up now on Satellite Digital Media. I'd like to thank all of you for watching tonight on youtube.com/at SDM News Network. And we thank you for being on. And we had a good show podcast tonight, talking about the 49ers. Giants coming out with a win. They're back in action. They're looking for a series sweep tomorrow on Sunday over the Detroit Tigers, and then they'll play the Braves, and then the Niners. They'll go get back to work, start preparing for the New Orleans Saints next Sunday, and we'll be out there for Satellite Digital Media as well of our main flagship, and as well as our sister network, Niners Radio 49. And for the latest news, check us out. Check all of our podcasts out at youtube.com/SDM News Network, youtube.com/SDM News Network. And you can check us out. You can come on anytime. And if you want to email or something like that, or Instagram, that's check us out on Instagram at uh, SDM underscore network. That's SDM underscore network. For now, I'm Brian, Professor B. Davis, and so long. Wish all of you a very pleasant good evening, and thank you for watching SDM Weekend Sports Edition with your host, Professor B, on Satellite Digital Media News. Every team has a fan, and every fan has a voice, the network home of champions. And wish you to have a very pleasant good night, everybody. Take care.